Kindness is often misunderstood in a world that moves fast and rewards visible success. People are taught to compete, to push harder, and to measure their worth through achievements that can be counted and displayed. Motivation is celebrated loudly, while empathy is treated as a weakness. Yet the most meaningful journeys are not built on pressure alone. They are shaped by quiet discipline, inner strength, and the courage to care even when life feels heavy. This story is about that balance. It is about how kindness and motivation, when practiced together, can transform an ordinary life into one filled with purpose. Ethan grew up in a city that never seemed to rest. Streets were crowded, ambitions were loud, and everyone appeared to be racing toward something. His family lived modestly, always careful with money but rich in values. From an early age, Ethan understood responsibility. He watched his parents work long hours without complaint, doing what was necessary rather than what was comfortable. Those moments taught him that effort was not heroic, it was normal. What stayed with him most was how his parents treated others, with patience and dignity, regardless of their own struggles. School introduced Ethan to competition. Grades mattered. Comparisons were constant. Many students tied their identity to performance. Ethan felt the pressure, but he also noticed something else. Behind confident faces were insecurities, behind laughter were worries. He was not the loudest or the most talented, but he was observant. He helped classmates when he could, not to appear generous, but because it felt right. These actions rarely brought recognition, yet they created quiet bonds of trust. As he entered adulthood, reality became more demanding. Dreams collided with responsibility. Ethan secured a job that paid the bills but offered little excitement. Each day felt repetitive, filled with targets, deadlines, and expectations. The workplace was competitive and emotionally distant. People worked hard but rarely connected. Stress was common, rest was rare, and kindness was often postponed for later. Ethan felt tempted to harden himself, to focus only on survival, but something inside him resisted that change. Instead of isolating himself, Ethan chose consistency. He arrived on time, did his work with care, and treated everyone with respect. When conflicts arose, he listened instead of reacting. When coworkers struggled, he offered help quietly. These choices did not immediately change his position, but they changed how people felt around him. Slowly, colleagues began to trust him. They shared concerns, doubts, and frustrations. Ethan realized that motivation grows when people feel supported rather than threatened. One year, uncertainty struck the company. Rumors of restructuring spread quickly. Fear entered the workplace, changing its atmosphere overnight. Conversations became cautious, smiles disappeared, and people began protecting themselves. Ethan felt anxious too, but he made a conscious decision not to let fear control his behavior. He checked in on coworkers, encouraged honest conversations, and reminded people that uncertainty did not define their value. These moments of connection did not erase fear, but they softened its grip. As pressure increased, mistakes became common. Deadlines were missed, tempers shortened. In an environment where blame could easily dominate, Ethan focused on solutions. He reminded his team that mistakes under pressure were human. This approach slowly shifted the tone. People became more open, more willing to learn, and less afraid to speak. Motivation returned quietly, built on trust rather than fear. Eventually, layoffs were announced. Some colleagues lost their jobs. Desks were emptied, and goodbyes were painful. Ethan remained employed, but instead of relief, he felt responsibility. He helped those leaving with resumes, references, and encouragement. These actions required time and emotional energy, but he believed success meant little if it disconnected him from compassion. Kindness, he learned, is most powerful when it costs something. Not long after, Ethan was invited to meet with management. They spoke about his influence during the crisis. They noticed how people trusted him and how morale improved around him. When they offered him a leadership opportunity, doubt surfaced immediately. Ethan questioned whether kindness could survive authority, whether empathy would be mistaken for weakness. After reflection, he accepted, understanding that growth often feels uncomfortable before it feels right. Leadership introduced new challenges. Decisions now affected others. Pressure increased. Criticism became part of daily life. There were moments when Ethan felt overwhelmed. Yet he stayed grounded in his values. He led with transparency, fairness, and patience. He listened before acting and explained decisions openly. Slowly, trust deepened. Productivity improved not because of fear, but because people felt respected. Outside of work, Ethan volunteered at a local community center. There, he met people carrying struggles heavier than his own. Some felt lost, others discouraged by repeated failure. Listening to their stories reminded him why kindness mattered. He mentored young individuals, encouraging discipline, consistency, and self-belief. He told them that motivation was not about feeling inspired every day, but about showing up even when energy was low. Balancing work, leadership, and volunteering was exhausting. There were days when Ethan felt close to burnout. During these moments, he learned an important lesson: kindness must include oneself. Rest was not laziness. Boundaries were not selfish. Sustainable motivation required balance. By caring for his own well-being, Ethan strengthened his ability to support others. Years passed, and Ethan's life evolved steadily. His confidence grew, not from praise, but from alignment with his values. He faced setbacks, criticism, and failure, but they no longer shook his foundation. He understood that success was not a destination, but a way of living with integrity. His influence began creating a ripple effect beyond his immediate environment. Another major transition arrived when the organization expanded rapidly. New teams joined, cultures mixed, and uncertainty returned in a new form. Ethan recognized the familiar pattern. Change unsettles people, even when it brings opportunity. He responded with clarity and empathy. He created space for dialogue, encouraged patience, and emphasized shared purpose. Unity developed gradually, built on trust rather than force. As responsibilities grew, Ethan learned the art of letting go. He could no longer control every detail. Trusting others required humility. He focused on developing leaders instead of managing outcomes. He taught empathy as a skill, not just a personality trait. Some embraced it quickly, others resisted. Ethan remained patient, understanding that growth takes time. Beyond work, the impact of his mentoring deepened. Former mentees began helping others. Stories of progress multiplied quietly. One evening, a young woman approached Ethan and shared how a single conversation years earlier had changed her direction. Ethan listened with gratitude and humility. He realized then that kindness creates echoes far beyond what we can measure. Life continued to present challenges. Loss arrived unexpectedly. Projects failed. Motivation dipped. During these moments, Ethan returned to simple habits: reflection, honesty, and compassion toward himself. He no longer feared slowing down. He understood that rest was part of progress, not a pause from it. Recognition eventually came, but it felt different than he once imagined. It was not applause that mattered, but trust. People felt safe around him. Teams felt stronger. Communities felt supported. He had become someone others could grow around. That realization brought quiet fulfillment. Looking back, Ethan saw that his journey was built on ordinary days and small choices. Kindness guided him when motivation faded. Motivation carried him forward when kindness felt heavy. Together, they formed a compass that kept him aligned during uncertainty. This story is not only about Ethan. It is a reminder that every day offers a choice. We can chase progress without compassion, or we can move forward with purpose and heart. True motivation does not demand perfection. It asks for consistency. Kindness, practiced daily, turns effort into meaning. In a world obsessed with speed and recognition, quiet consistency still matters. Small acts still create change. When kindness leads and motivation follows, growth becomes sustainable, purpose becomes clear, and ordinary lives begin to leave extraordinary impact. Part 2. When purpose deepens. After the years of steady growth, Ethan reached a quieter phase of life where urgency faded and intention sharpened. He noticed that motivation no longer arrived as bursts of excitement, it appeared as commitment to daily standards. This shift felt unfamiliar at first. Without constant pressure, he had to learn how to guide himself. He began setting intentions each morning, not about outcomes, but about conduct, how he would listen, how he would respond, and how he would treat people when results were uncertain. At work, new leaders joined with different styles and priorities. Change returned, subtle but persistent. Meetings became faster, expectations heavier. Ethan chose to become a bridge rather than a barrier. He translated urgency into clarity for his team, reminding them that speed without understanding creates exhaustion. He encouraged questions, protected focus, and insisted on recovery after demanding sprints. These practices did not always please everyone, but they preserved momentum. One project tested his resolve deeply. Timelines were unrealistic, resources limited, and public scrutiny intense. When setbacks occurred, criticism followed. Ethan stood with his team, absorbing pressure upward while sharing learning downward. He admitted what he did not know, asked for help, and adjusted plans openly. The project recovered, not perfectly, but honestly. The team emerged stronger, trusting the process they had built together. Beyond the office, Ethan expanded his mentoring to include workshops for young professionals navigating early careers. He spoke about discipline without harshness, ambition without arrogance, and kindness as a competitive advantage. He reminded them that burnout is not proof of dedication and that sustainable motivation respects human limits. Many returned weeks later to share small wins, clearer routines, better conversations, calmer minds. As influence widened, Ethan guarded his inner life carefully. He limited noise, reduced comparison, and protected time for reflection. He learned that inspiration thrives in quiet spaces. When motivation dipped, he returned to fundamentals: sleep, movement, honest conversation, and service without applause. These anchors kept him steady when recognition tempted distraction. A personal loss arrived unexpectedly and slowed everything. Grief reshaped his days, softened his voice, and deepened his empathy. He allowed himself to feel without rushing recovery. In that season, kindness toward himself became essential. Gradually, strength returned, not as certainty, but as presence. He discovered that showing up gently can be as powerful as pushing forward fiercely. Over time, Ethan noticed the ripple effects of years lived intentionally. Teams adopted healthier rhythms. Former mentees became mentors. Conversations shifted from blame to learning. None of it was dramatic. All of it mattered. He realized that legacy is built in habits repeated when no one is watching. Looking ahead, Ethan stopped chasing milestones and started nurturing ecosystems, places where people could grow, fail safely, and try again. Motivation became collective, fueled by shared purpose. Kindness became cultural, reinforced by example. This part of the journey did not conclude with a finish line. It opened into responsibility. The work continued, quieter and stronger, guided by the same compass that had carried him from the beginning: care with courage, effort with empathy, and progress that honors people as much as results.